I never thought I'd question my husband's devotion to his sick mother, until I discovered he wasn't at her bedside at all, but secretly living with his ex. My name is Hailey, and just writing those words makes my stomach twist. If you'd met me a year ago, you'd have seen a confident 28-year-old woman, content with her new marriage to Ryan. We lived in a modest but charming townhouse on the outskirts of Boston, complete with a cozy living room, a tiny garden I adored, and a sense of stability I'd craved for years. At the time, I thought my life was lining up perfectly. A stable nursing job at a local pediatric clinic, a sweet husband who'd do anything for me, and a home that felt safe. For the first 6 months of our marriage, things were as close to bliss as I could imagine. Ryan worked in software support, mostly from home, occasionally traveling to client sites or heading to see extended family. He was always thoughtful, never forgetting birthdays or anniversaries, surprising me with warm pastries when I worked late shifts. My girlfriends teased that I'd snagged Mr. Perfect, especially since he rarely showed any signs of jealousy or anger. He was gentle, supportive, and I thought honest. But about 8 months into our marriage, Ryan started getting these phone calls, always late in the evening. I'd be winding down after work, maybe scrolling through social media, and I'd see him tense up at the buzzing phone. Then he'd mutter something like, "I need to take this," and walk out of earshot. At first, I brushed it off. Family emergency, maybe? He'd mentioned before that his mother was elderly and had some health issues. But after a while, the frequency of these calls ramped up. He began disappearing into the guest bedroom or stepping outside, only to come back looking pale, edgy, occasionally even tearful. I'm a nurse, so my alarm bells started going off. I asked him gently, "Is your mom okay?" He'd sigh and confess that yes, she was having more problems, heart issues, arthritis, memory lapses. "She needs me," he'd say, eyes downcast. "I might have to start making regular visits to help out." My heart went out to him. I know how draining it is to care for an ailing parent. I'd lost my own dad when I was a teenager, so I understood that sense of helplessness. I squeezed Ryan's hand and told him, "Of course, whatever you need to do." Part of me felt proud he was so dedicated to his mother's well-being. Another part, though, flickered with concern. I'd never met this woman. He claimed she lived in another town, about an hour's drive away. The few times I offered to visit, to bring groceries or cook a meal, Ryan would find excuses. "She's shy," he'd say, or "she doesn't like meeting new people when she's unwell." At the time, I swallowed those explanations. Maybe she truly was a private person. Some people, especially older folks, get self-conscious about being seen at their worst, so I didn't push. I thought I was respecting boundaries. Then the weekend trips started. Ryan would pack an overnight bag on Friday, telling me he'd be back Sunday night or Monday morning. He'd say, "Mom's got a doctor appointment Monday, and I want to make sure she's okay through the weekend." I'd watch him leave, blow him a kiss, and go about my own weekend routine, grabbing coffee with friends, maybe picking up an extra shift at the clinic. I told them all how sweet my husband was, taking such good care of his sick mother. "He's the best," I'd gush. My friends would nod approvingly, and that was that. But as the months went on, something changed. Ryan grew more distant. When we did have time together, he seemed distracted, checking his phone constantly, sometimes even leaving the dinner table to answer calls. If I asked how his mom was doing, he'd give vague answers. "She, hanging in there," or "It's up and down, you know how it goes." I tried not to pry, but it stung that he wouldn't share specifics. Especially since, as a nurse, I might actually help if I knew her exact condition. One night, I gently pressed him, "Couldn't we hire a home health aide, someone to make sure your mom's okay daily?" He brushed it off with a tense shrug. "She doesn't trust strangers," he said, and I promised her I help, family first. On the surface, it sounded admirable. Underneath, I felt a subtle wedge driving between us. He was gone more weekends than he was home, and when he was with me, he acted like a visitor, sleeping in late, scrolling through his phone, barely engaging in conversation. Our once lively date nights faded into quick dinners or TV marathons, with Ryan half asleep on the couch. I tried to talk about it with Daria, my closest friend and coworker at the clinic. Over lunch break, I confided, "He's taking care of his mom, but it's like he's shutting me out. I don't know if I should push for more details or just be supportive." Daria sipped her iced coffee, frowning thoughtfully. "It's weird you've never met her," she said. "I get privacy, but you're his wife. Why keep you at arm's length?" I shrugged, wanting to defend Ryan. Maybe she's just old-fashioned. Or maybe Ryan's stressed. I don't want to be that nagging wife, you know. Still, her questions planted a seed of doubt in my mind. A few nights later, Ryan was packing the apartment, gathering clothes for yet another weekend trip to Mom's house. I tried to hide my frustration but couldn't resist a small jab. So, what's on the agenda? Doctor visits? Physical therapy? Any chance I could come along this time? My tone was casual, but I could see him tense. He zipped his suitcase with a little too much force. "It's not a good weekend for that," he said bluntly. "I told you, she's not comfortable meeting new people." I forced a laugh, but it came out shaky. "I'm not new, I'm her daughter-in-law." He avoided my eyes, muttering something about next time. Then he gave me a quick peck on the cheek and walked out. That was the moment I realized I barely knew my own husband's family. We had a small courthouse wedding 6 months earlier, largely because Ryan insisted he had no close relatives who'd want to attend a big ceremony. Just me, him, and two of my friends as witnesses. I'd assumed maybe his mother wasn't mobile enough to travel for the wedding. My parents had passed away, so I didn't have a big family to invite either. It seemed simpler at the time. But now, all these details felt off, like puzzle pieces that didn't fit. The following Saturday night, alone in our bedroom, I found myself checking social media, searching for any sign of Ryan's mother. I only found an old profile with a single photo, Ryan as a toddler, presumably next to a woman in her 30s. No updates in years. I tried searching for other relatives. Nothing. I scrolled and scrolled, feeling a weird guilt, like I was snooping. But that guilt was overshadowed by a growing sense of unease. Looking back now, I see that I was in denial, half desperate to find a normal explanation for everything. I told myself, he's just a devoted son and I'm being paranoid. But it was more than that. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Ryan. "Mom's stable, don't wait up, might be home late Monday." No, I love you, no warmth, just a quick status update, as if I were an acquaintance, not his wife. I spent that Sunday in a haze, cleaning the apartment, trying to distract myself by reorganizing the closet, binge-watching random shows. But the dread wouldn't leave. Late that night, I tried to call him. No answer. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. I told myself he was probably sleeping or his phone died, but a knot of worry and suspicion curled tight in my stomach. On Monday, I headed to the clinic for an early shift. Daria saw my pale face and asked, "Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, just worried about Ryan's mom, haven't heard from him." She gave me a skeptical look but let it go when our first patient arrived. Lunchtime rolled around and I finally got a call, unknown number. Confused, I answered. "Hello," a woman's voice responded. "Hi, is this Hailey? This is Miranda from the Redwood nursing home. I'm calling about your husband, Ryan." My heart jumped into my throat. "Is everything okay?" I asked, heart pounding. She hesitated. Well, we've tried contacting him about his mother's outstanding bills. We have him listed as next of kin, but it seems she hasn't been here in over a year." "Are you aware of her relocation?" My mind reeled. "I'm sorry, her relocation? I thought she was living at home." The woman on the phone cleared her throat, sounding apologetic. "No, Ms. Collins was discharged last spring, and we have no new address on file. Is Ryan aware of that?" My mouth went dry. I'm sure he is. Let me check with him," I lied, my fingers shaking. After we hung up, I just stared at the phone, heart hammering. If Ryan's mother was discharged from a nursing home last spring and Ryan never told me, then where was he going every weekend? 1,000 thoughts spun in my head, none of them comforting. That call was the final nudge that pushed me from uneasy suspicion into outright alarm. If his mother wasn't at her old place, if the nursing home had lost track of her, then why was Ryan vanishing for entire weekends? Something big was wrong, and I was terrified to find out what it was. That phone call shook me so badly I had to excuse myself from work early. My head spun with the question, if Ryan's mother wasn't living at home or in a nursing home, who was he visiting every weekend? Was she even sick at all? I felt guilty for even thinking that. What if she had relocated to another facility, or was staying with a relative Ryan never mentioned? But the more I tried to piece things together, the more I realized how little I actually knew about his family. He'd always been vague about his past. I assumed he was just private, or that his mom's health issues were a painful topic. Now I saw it differently. Maybe it was a calculated effort to keep me in the dark. The thought made my chest tighten with dread. I texted him right after I left the clinic. "Hey, we need to talk ASAP, call me." No reply. I tried calling straight to voicemail. It was already late afternoon, so I drove home, changed into comfy clothes, and paced the living room. Every few minutes, I'd check my phone, wondering if he was ignoring me on purpose. Eventually, I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed my car keys, got in my sedan, and started driving. I didn't know where to go. I only had the old address he once gave me for his mom's house, an address he'd mentioned in passing. Maybe it was real, maybe not, but I had to try. The drive took nearly an hour, and with each mile, my heart pounded harder. I had no clue what I'd find. An empty house, a friendly old lady answering the door, or maybe a neighbor telling me Ryan never lived there. By the time I pulled onto the quiet suburban street, my palms were slick with sweat. The address matched a small, worn-looking bungalow with peeling paint and an overgrown lawn. My stomach flipped. This didn't look like a place where a frail elderly woman received careful care. I got out, hesitated, then rang the doorbell. No answer. I peered through a side window. The house looked abandoned, dust on the window ledge, no furniture in sight. My anxiety spiked. This was the address Ryan had sworn was his mother's. He'd even claimed she'd lived there for decades. Yet it looked deserted, like no one had stepped inside for ages. I walked around, checking for any sign of life. Nothing. In a burst of desperation, I knocked on a neighbor's door. A gray-haired man answered, giving me a cautious look. I forced a polite smile. "Hi, sorry to bother you. I'm looking for the person who used to live next door, a woman named Miss Collins. Maybe you know if she moved." He frowned, thinking, "Collins, can't say I recall that name. The owner of that place passed away a couple years back, and her son sold the property. Been empty ever since." My heart thudded. Passed away years ago? That didn't match anything Ryan had told me. "Are you sure?" I asked weakly, my mind reeling. The neighbor just shrugged, apologized he couldn't help more, and shut the door. I stumbled back to my car, tears burning my eyes. The puzzle pieces were more jumbled than ever, but one thing was clear. Ryan lied about his mother's house. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. Maybe Ryan didn't know the house was sold? That was a stretch. Or maybe the story about his ailing mother was a total fabrication. By the time I got home, the sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and pinks. My phone pinged, a text from Ryan. "Busy day, phone died. What's up?" My blood boiled at the casual tone. "Busy day, phone died." I typed back, hands shaking. "Where are you right now? I need to talk to you in person. It's urgent." He answered about 10 minutes later, "Heading back tomorrow morning. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen, anger coiling in my chest. Tomorrow morning, if he was with his mom, why not let me come there tonight? My fingers flew. "No, I'm not okay. I found your mother's old house. It's abandoned. Call me now." Silence. He didn't reply. I tried calling straight to voicemail again. Rage and panic clashed inside me. I called Daria instead, my voice trembling as I recounted the events. "Hailey," she said, "this is fishy beyond fishy. You need the truth, and if he won't give it to you, maybe you should dig deeper." "Like hire a detective?" I asked, half laughing at the absurdity. But Daria was dead serious. "Yes, or do some online sleuthing. Check public records for his mom's address, see if you can find anything about her passing or any other relatives." I pressed a hand to my forehead, exhaustion weighing on me. "I can't believe this is my life. I thought we were happy." Daria's voice softened. "I'm sorry, honey, but you deserve answers." With her encouragement, I spent a sleepless night poring over county records, old obituaries, even rummaging through my and Ryan's documents in the desk drawer. I found nothing about his mother except a single mention on a 10-year-old medical bill. Meanwhile, my search turned up something else, a record of a divorce from 4 years ago. It listed a Ryan Collins dissolving marriage with a Melissa Collins, plus mention of a minor child. My breath caught in my throat. A child. My Ryan was divorced with a kid. That was never in our conversations, not even once. My heart hammered, tears pricking my eyes. Why would he hide a whole previous marriage? A child? Suddenly, a new horrifying possibility sank in. Was he lying about his mother's illness to spend time with an ex and a child I never knew existed? At dawn, I finally crashed for a couple hours, then woke to Ryan's text. "Home soon, let's talk." My chest twisted in anger. I texted back, "We will talk. Hurry." An hour later, I heard his key in the lock. I was sitting on the couch, arms folded, the divorce record open on the coffee table. He walked in, looking haggard, hair disheveled, a faint smell of stale coffee clinging to him. "Hey," he said, forcing a smile. "Why the drama?" My voice shook with fury. "Drama? How about the fact that your mom's not living in that house you told me about? Or that I found a divorce record for you and someone named Melissa? Or that there's a kid in the picture you never bothered to mention? Want to explain that, Ryan?" He paled, his mouth opening and closing. For a moment, he just stared at me like a deer caught in headlights. Then, with a shaky sigh, he dropped his bag. "Let me explain," he pleaded. "It's not what you think." My heart pounded as I stood, arms trembling. "You'd better start talking, because right now, I think you've been lying to me for 6 months straight about everything." I could hear the anger in my own voice, but beneath it, a crushing sorrow welled up. What if the man I married was a total stranger? Ryan sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "Just give me a chance," he whispered. "I swear I was going to tell you, I just didn't know how." I crossed my arms, tears burning my eyes. "Then tell me now," I demanded, voice barely above a whisper. "No more lies." He looked up, shame flooding his gaze. "I've been staying with Melissa and our daughter. She's 4. I never told you because He broke off, swallowing hard. "I'm sorry, Hailey. I didn't mean to hurt you." His words crashed over me like a tidal wave. A daughter? He'd been with them every weekend, leaving me behind with a fake story about a sick mom. My mind spun, my heart a jumbled mess of betrayal, anger, and confusion. Did he still love this ex-wife? Was I just a second choice? I stood there, speechless, tears slipping down my cheeks. Because in that moment, one brutal truth was clear. The man I trusted had betrayed me on a level I never imagined. And this was only the beginning of the heartbreak I was about to endure. I couldn't breathe. The shock of Ryan's confession, there was an ex-wife, a 4-year-old daughter, hit me so hard that for a moment, everything spun. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear my own thoughts. Finally, I forced myself to speak, my voice trembling. "You've been hiding a child from me, for how long?" I asked, wiping away the hot tears on my cheeks. Ryan stared at the floor. "Since we met. It all happened so fast with you and me. I was divorced, and Melissa had full custody of our daughter, Ava. I thought I could move on, start fresh. But when I found out Melissa was struggling, I couldn't just ignore Ava. I felt dizzy. So every weekend you told me you were at your mom's, you were actually living with your ex and your daughter, and you let me believe your mom was sick." My voice cracked on the last word, disbelief mixing with fury. He winced. "Yes, I know how bad it sounds. But Hailey, please understand, I was scared you, judge me, or think I was still in love with Melissa. And I was ashamed that I'd failed as a father." His explanation felt like a punch to the gut. "So you lied to me about everything? You created this elaborate story about an ailing mother just so you could slip away to your other family." My words dripped with anger, but underneath it all, heartbreak pulsed. He stood abruptly, reaching for my hand. "Hailey, I love you. I never planned to get back with Melissa. She's just had a rough time. She lost her job, got behind on bills. Ava needed stability. I couldn't abandon them. But I also didn't know how to tell you. I kept pushing it off until..." I pulled my hand away, stepping back like his touch burned me. "So your big plan was to have 2 lives, the caring husband at home and the secret father with your ex on weekends? That's twisted, Ryan." He flinched like I'd slapped him, tears welling in his eyes. "I know, I'm sorry. Part of me wanted to come clean, but I couldn't find the right moment. Then it all spiraled." I let out a harsh laugh, my emotions swinging between rage and sorrow. "The right moment? Maybe before we got married? Or, I don't know, at any point in the last 6 months. Do you realize how betrayed I feel right now?" He nodded miserably, words failing him. I couldn't stand looking at him, so I turned away, arms wrapped around myself. My mind flashed to all those nights I was alone, worried about him, feeling guilty for suspecting anything. He had a daughter, Ava, a sweet child I never even knew existed. And Melissa, was she just a struggling single mom, or was there more between them? I took a shaky breath. "Are you sleeping with her?" He shook his head quickly. "No, I swear it's not like that. We share the small guest room. It's all about Ava. But Melissa, she depends on me for help with bills, errands, cooking. I couldn't abandon my own child, Hailey." A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. On one hand, how could I blame him for wanting to be there for his daughter? On the other, he had lied to me so deeply that everything felt tainted. So you told me your mother was sick, playing on my sympathy, so you could go take care of a secret daughter and ex-wife. He looked at me with desperation. I never wanted to manipulate you. I was terrified you'd leave if you knew I was still involved with Melissa. I thought once Melissa got on her feet, I'd find a better way to share custody without her relying on me for everything. Then I'd tell you about Ava. Tears burned my eyes again. It's not Ava I'm upset about, it's your betrayal, your lies. If you told me from the start you had a daughter, that you needed to help an ex, maybe I'd have understood. But now, I don't know what to believe. He reached out, voice trembling. Please, Hailey, I love you, I love our life. I had to be there for my kid. I inhaled sharply, turning to face him. You can't use love as an excuse to lie. You robbed me of the chance to be a part of your child's life, to embrace her as my stepdaughter, and you let me think your mother was on her deathbed. My voice broke on that last sentence, the sheer cruelty of it hitting me in a fresh wave. He dropped his gaze, tears slipping down his cheeks. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence felt suffocating. Finally, I took another unsteady breath. I need you to leave. His eyes snapped up. Hailey. I can't look at you right now, I whispered, my throat constricting. Go back to Melissa's or your mother, or wherever you want. I need space to figure out what's left of my life. My chest felt like it was caving in, but I forced myself to stand firm. Ryan grabbed his bag and slowly headed toward the door. I'm sorry, he murmured, voice thick with regret. I'm so sorry. Then he walked out, the door clicking shut behind him. I stood frozen, tears pouring down my face. For a while, I just sank onto the couch, hugging a pillow to my chest, sobbing so hard I thought I might choke. My mind swirled with images of a little girl who had no clue her dad was living a double life, a struggling ex-wife possibly clinging to hope for a reunion. And me, blindsided, left to wonder if my entire marriage was a lie. Eventually, I called Daria, my voice still trembling. He has a daughter, I whispered, as if saying it out loud made it more real. She gasped, cursing under her breath. Seriously? God, Hailey, I'm so sorry. We spent an hour on the phone, me spilling every detail, her offering solace. You're right to be furious, she told me. He can't just hide a child and expect you to be okay with it. That's insane. A part of me felt guilty. Ryan's child was innocent in all this. But another part roared that he'd lied to me daily, weaving this elaborate story about a sick mom, never trusting me enough to reveal the truth. Maybe if he'd just told me about Ava at the start, I confessed, I would have tried to help. I love kids, I'm a pediatric nurse. But the deception, I can't get past it. Daria sighed. He took away your choice, and that's huge. This was your marriage, your future, and he built it on a lie. After we hung up, I tried to calm my spinning thoughts. I was torn between heartbreak for the little girl, anger at Ryan, and a strange longing to understand the full story. How did he think this would end? Did he expect me never to find out? Sleep was impossible that night. I tossed and turned, replaying the moment of his confession over and over. By morning, a grim sort of clarity set in. I needed answers. If Ryan was truly just supporting his child, that was one thing. But if it was an excuse to slip back into a life with Melissa, that was another. And I deserved to know which it was. The next day, I texted him, I need to know everything, all the details, no more lies. Meet me at the cafe on Maple at 6 p.m. He didn't reply until late afternoon, a short message. Okay, I'll be there. The hours until that meeting dragged. At work, I robotically went through the motions, checking vitals, chatting with worried parents, all while my mind raced. Daria gently squeezed my shoulder at one point, offering a look of support. I must have seemed like a ghost. When 6 p.m. finally rolled around, I arrived at the cafe, heart thudding. Ryan was already there, looking miserable. He'd barely touched his coffee. As soon as I sat down, he started talking, words tumbling out like a confession he'd rehearsed in his head. He told me how he married Melissa young, that they had Ava, but the marriage fell apart after constant fights. They divorced and he moved states, wanting a clean slate. Then he met me. I was happy with you, he whispered, tears in his eyes. But when Melissa lost her job and called, desperate, I felt guilty. Ava is my daughter, I couldn't ignore that. So I went back, started helping with rent, groceries. It was supposed to be temporary. Why lie about it? I managed my throat tight. He dropped his gaze. Because I was terrified you leave, and maybe a part of me was worried I'd look like a failure for not telling you I had a kid all along. I fought back tears. So you'd rather spin this story about a sick mother? That's cruel, Ryan. I would have understood if you just trusted me enough to tell me the truth. He nodded, wiping his eyes. I know, I messed up beyond words. But Hailey, I swear, it's not romantic between Melissa and me. She's focusing on her own issues, and I'm just there for Ava. I sat in silence, absorbing his words. Could I believe him, or was this just another layer of lies? My mind flicked to the moral dilemma. Of course a father has the right, maybe even the obligation, to be with his child. But if it was really just for Ava, why not tell me from the start? And did I want to stay married to someone who'd lied so extensively? He reached across the table, voice trembling. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm begging you. I'll stop lying, I'll prove it. I want to keep us, our marriage, intact and also be there for Ava. Please don't give up on us. I stared at his hand, not sure if I wanted to hold it or slap it away. After a long pause, I whispered, You hurt me more than you can imagine. I need time to figure out if I can ever trust you again. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I understand. Whatever you decide, I'll accept. Leaving the cafe that night, my heart felt heavier than ever. Was this just an affair disguised as paternal duty, or was he truly trying to be a responsible father? Either way, the foundation of our marriage had cracked wide open. And as I drove home in the dark, headlights passing by in a blur, I realized I was barreling toward a decision that could change everything, one I wasn't ready to make. I spent that entire week trapped in an emotional freefall. Each morning, I'd wake up with a knot in my stomach, remembering that my husband of less than a year had hidden a whole other life, an ex-wife, a 4-year-old daughter, a constant lie about his sick mother. Half the time I felt furious, half the time I felt gutted, unable to eat or sleep normally. Ryan texted me a few times with updates on Ava. She's got a cold, or she's asking for me. My anger flared at each message. How dare he act like this is normal? But then guilt would surface. She's just an innocent kid who needs her dad. Was I selfish if I told him not to help? I tried talking it through with Daria again, but even she seemed stumped. I get that he wants to be a dad, she said, but lying about his ex for 6 months is monstrous. If he was honest from the start, you two could have navigated this together. That was the crux of it. If he just trusted me with the truth, we could have figured out a plan, financial support, scheduled visits. Instead, I felt like a mistress to his secret family. The irony wasn't lost on me. Usually, it's the other woman who's kept hidden, not the wife. But that was my reality. I decided I needed professional help, someone objective. So I scheduled an emergency session with a therapist I found online, a woman named Dr. Harvey. During our first session, I poured out the story, voice shaking, tears flowing intermittently. She listened calmly, nodding, occasionally jotting notes. When I finished, she asked gently, Hailey, what do you want right now? Do you want to salvage your marriage? Are you looking for a path to move on alone? I stared at the floor, exhaustion weighing on me. I don't know, I admitted. I loved Ryan, I still do, I think, but can I forgive this level of betrayal? She leaned forward, her tone kind. In cases like this, it's less about deciding on forgiveness immediately and more about understanding whether his actions can change. Has he shown genuine remorse and the willingness to be transparent moving forward? I shrugged miserably. He's apologizing nonstop, but words aren't enough. He says he wants to integrate me into Ava's life, but that feels terrifying. Like I'm just now learning he has a daughter. How do I process that? She nodded. It's a huge transition. Sometimes, couples counseling can help if you're open to it, but your feelings of betrayal are valid. This is a major breach of trust. Leaving that session, I felt a hint of clarity. If Ryan wanted a chance, he had to be an open book. No more secrets. And maybe, if I could see Ava's world for myself, I'd figure out if there was still hope. If he refused, well, that told me all I needed to know. I texted Ryan, we need to meet again. Tomorrow, after work, bring all your honesty. He replied within minutes, of course, anything. We met at the same cafe. I arrived first this time, my heart hammering. When he walked in, he looked nervous, dark circles under his eyes. He sat down quietly, waiting for me to speak. I took a steadying breath. I saw a therapist. She said that if we want any chance of moving forward, you need to be completely transparent. No more half-truths. He nodded, fiddling with his coffee mug. I know. And I want to meet Ava. If I'm going to be your wife, and if you're going to be a father, I deserve to see that part of your life. My voice shook slightly, but I held his gaze. Ryan's eyes widened. You do. He seemed both relieved and terrified. Are you sure? I let out a shaky exhale. I'm not sure of anything, but I'd rather see the truth than keep imagining the worst. If you're willing, I want to see where you stay with Melissa, how Ava lives. Everything. He swallowed hard, nodding. All right, whatever it takes. We agreed to go that Saturday. Ryan said Melissa was aware of me, she knew he'd remarried, but apparently she'd believed he told me about Ava from the start. According to Ryan, Melissa had no clue he'd lied to me, which only added another layer of betrayal. I tried to prepare myself for an awkward confrontation, but I realized I wasn't angry at Melissa. The real blame lay with Ryan. Saturday came, and my nerves were off the charts. Ryan drove us about 40 minutes across town to a modest apartment complex. My stomach churned as we climbed the stairs to a second-floor unit. He knocked, and after a short pause, a woman with tired eyes and messy brunette hair opened the door. She spotted me behind him, her expression shifting from confusion to polite caution. "Hi, I'm Hailey," I said, my voice shaky. "Ryan's wife." Her eyes flicked to him, then back to me. "Melissa, come on in," she said, stepping aside. The apartment was small, cluttered with toys, laundry baskets, scattered papers. It smelled faintly of cereal and crayons, reminding me of homes I'd visited as a pediatric nurse. Within moments, a little girl with curly hair poked her head out from behind the couch. Ryan crouched down, opening his arms. "Ava, come say hi." She ran to him with a shy smile, glancing at me curiously. My heart lurched. She was adorable, big brown eyes, so innocent in all this mess. Melissa cleared her throat. Do you want coffee or something?" She looked embarrassed by the state of the place. I smiled weakly. "No, that's okay, thanks." She guided me to sit at the small kitchen table. Ryan and Ava went off to another corner, chatting softly. For a moment, Melissa and I just stared at each other, an unspoken tension heavy in the air. Finally, she said quietly, "I'm sorry if this is awkward. I assumed Ryan told you about Ava. I never meant for you to be kept in the dark." I nodded, swallowing past the lump in my throat. "I know. He told me you didn't realize he was lying to me." She sighed. "Yeah, he showed up here months ago saying you were fine with him helping. I believed him because, well, why wouldn't I?" She paused, guilt crossing her features. "He never stayed in my room if that's what you're worried about. We've been completely platonic. I'm just broke and desperate, and Ava needs her dad." I studied her face, seeing the stress etched in her features. I could almost sense the exhaustion of single motherhood, of living paycheck to paycheck. "I don't blame you," I murmured. "It's Ryan who should have been honest." She nodded, eyes watering. "Still, I can imagine how betrayed you feel. If the roles were reversed, I'd be furious." I was about to reply when Ava scampered over, holding a coloring book. She handed it to me shyly. "Want a color?" My heart melted. I forced a trembling smile. "Sure, sweetie." We spent the next few minutes coloring princesses together, my mind racing with conflicting emotions. Part of me felt a strange warmth. This was Ryan's daughter, a child who deserved a stable home. Another part felt pangs of sadness, realizing I'd been excluded from her life. After a while, Ava went to her room to watch cartoons, and Ryan joined us at the table, looking anxious. "So, this is it," he said quietly. "My weekend's here." Melissa chimed in. "He helps with errands, cleaning, and watches Ava so I can work part-time. It's not glamorous, but it's how we manage." I exhaled, adrenaline still coursing through me. "Okay," I said softly. "I appreciate seeing it firsthand. I won't lie, it hurts that I found out this way, but I also get that Ava needs you." Ryan reached for my hand, but I pulled back, my eyes filling with tears. "I'm not ready to just forgive and move on," I whispered, voice cracking. "I need time. And if we try to make this marriage work, I need a real plan for how we handle parenting, and how Melissa can manage without you basically living here in secret." He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. Melissa looked away, giving us privacy. I'll do whatever it takes, Ryan said. I'll be transparent, no more secrets. I forced a small nod, conflicted. Did I even want to salvage this marriage, or was too much damage already done? My heart felt tugged in 1,000 directions, anger at Ryan, empathy for Ava, pity for Melissa, and a sliver of hope that maybe, somehow, we could forge a path where Ryan supports his child without lying to me. We left after a painfully polite goodbye. Ava waved at me, and my chest ached with unshed tears. In the car, Ryan tried to place a comforting hand on my shoulder, but I shrugged it off. I just need space, I said, staring out the window at the passing streets. Back at our townhouse, I locked myself in the bedroom for a while, letting the tears come. Ryan didn't knock. He must have sensed I needed solitude. Later, I emerged to find him sitting on the couch, eyes red, fiddling with a photo of us from our wedding day. My gut twisted, recalling how happy I looked in that picture, so blissfully unaware of the secrets he carried. I cleared my throat. Ryan, I said quietly, we need to figure out a real plan. No more going behind my back. If you're supporting Ava, you should do it openly. Maybe child support, maybe a visitation schedule, but this double life stops now. He nodded, his voice raw. Agreed. I'll talk to Melissa about an official arrangement. I can't keep lying. I don't want to lose you. The words should have comforted me, but all I felt was exhaustion. I'm not saying I'm leaving you, but I'm not saying I'm staying either. We need counseling, honesty, everything on the table. He stood, crossing the room to stand a careful distance away. I understand. I'll do whatever you need. His eyes pleaded for me to believe him, but I'd heard promises before. Action was what mattered now. I told him to sleep in the guest room. He didn't protest. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like an extra in someone else's family drama. Ryan was a father secretly taking care of an ex-wife's bills, and I was left to decide if I could handle a future that included stepmotherhood under the shadow of betrayal. Looking back now, I wish I'd known that meeting Ava was only the start of the emotional spiral. Because as we tried to reshuffle our lives, to transition from deceit to honesty, we faced wave after wave of complications. And each time, I was pushed to my limits, wondering if love could survive a lie this big. For the next few weeks, my life felt like a circus where I was juggling emotions, appointments, and the fragile remains of my marriage, all while trying not to drop everything in a chaotic crash. Ryan moved into the guest room permanently, which gave us some space to sort out our feelings. I was still furious, but somewhere beneath the anger, I felt a pang of hope. Maybe, if he really changed, we could build a life that included Ava without the lies. We started couples counseling every Thursday night. Our therapist, Dr. Harvey, guided us through agonizingly honest conversations. Ryan confessed how he'd initially thought lying would protect me from the complications of his past. I unleashed my resentment about being robbed of the chance to know Ava from the start. There were tears, defensive outbursts, and long, uncomfortable silences. But at least it was out in the open now. Meanwhile, Ryan began working on a parenting plan with Melissa, something official, with child support and scheduled visitation. I want to do this right, he told me one evening, exhaustion etched into his face. No more sneaking off. You can come with me to pick Ava up, or we can have her stay with us some weekends, if you're comfortable with that. Was I comfortable with that? The idea of stepping into a stepmother role overnight felt daunting. A part of me wanted to say yes. I work with kids daily, after all, and Ava was such a sweet child. But a deeper part still fumed at Ryan's betrayal. I need time, I said simply. I'm not sure how to feel about playing stepmom when I'm still not sure I can trust you. He nodded, tears glimmering in his eyes. I understand. That weekend, for the first time, Ryan didn't vanish with a suitcase. Instead, he told Melissa he'd come for a day visit with Ava but return home by dinner. I braced myself, uncertain how I'd handle seeing him leave for the day. Would it trigger flashbacks of his old lies? But when Saturday morning rolled around, Ryan hesitated at the front door. You can come if you want, he offered, voice tentative. We could take Ava to the park. No secrets. My heart pounded. Was I ready to face Melissa again, to see that apartment filled with reminders of how Ryan lied? Still, a small voice inside urged me to try. If I was serious about seeing if our marriage could survive, I needed to see how it felt to be part of Ava's world. so I swallowed my pride and said, "Okay." We drove in near silence, tension thick in the air. At the apartment complex, Melissa greeted us at the door, looking more relaxed than before. She'd tidied up, and Ava was dressed in colorful leggings, eager to show us her new toy. "Look, it's a princess wand," she squealed, running to me. I forced a smile, touched by her openness. Ryan looked relieved. The four of us ended up walking to a local park. Ava ran ahead, giggling as she chased bubbles Ryan blew into the breeze. Melissa and I trailed behind, awkwardly making small talk about the weather, about my job at the clinic. Eventually, she sighed, glancing at me. "I really had no idea he was lying to you, Hailey. I hope you believe that." I nodded, my voice soft. "I do, this is all a lot to take in." I paused, forcing myself to ask the question that nagged me most. "Do you still have feelings for Ryan?" She blinked, then laughed, a bit sadly. "Not in a romantic way, no. We were kids when we got married. We fought more than we loved. I won't deny I leaned on him these past months. But that's because of Ava, not because I want him back." Relief and a strange sadness washed over me. We strolled in silence for a moment, watching Ryan chase Ava around a swing set, her laughter brightening the air. "She deserves her dad," I whispered. "And I guess that's the real moral dilemma. How can I blame him for wanting to be there for her?" Melissa nodded, eyes distant. "I know, he made a huge mistake by hiding it, but underneath it all, I think he just didn't want to lose you." I thought about that, my emotions tumbling. Ryan had proven himself to be a liar, but was it purely for selfish reasons or out of fear? Either way, the damage was done. After an hour at the park, we said our goodbyes. Melissa thanked me for coming, and Ava gave me a little wave before darting back inside with her princess wand. Ryan and I drove home in relative quiet, but it wasn't the suffocating silence of before. Something had shifted, a small step toward honesty. That night, we had another brutally honest talk. Ryan told me more about his regrets, how he felt like a failure for ending his first marriage, how he thought I'd reject him if I knew the truth. I talked about feeling humiliated, like he'd made me an unsuspecting accomplice in a big lie. Eventually, we both ended up in tears, clinging to each other on the living room couch. "Hailey," he said, voice thick with emotion, "I know I might not deserve a second chance, but I'll work every day to earn it. Just tell me what you need." I wiped my eyes, heart aching. I need to see real, consistent honesty. No more secrets. No more evading questions. If I ask about Ava, you tell me the truth. If you need to help Melissa, you tell me exactly what's going on. Can you handle that? He nodded fiercely, tears dripping onto his shirt. "Yes." And so, for a while, it seemed like we were on a slow path to rebuilding. Ryan kept me updated on his visits with Ava, inviting me along whenever I was comfortable. Sometimes I joined, sometimes I stayed home. Melissa found a part-time job that eased her financial struggles, so Ryan no longer had to spend entire weekends at her place. We even talked about having Ava come spend an afternoon at our townhouse, though I felt anxious about that. I worried it might be too soon, too big a step. But just when I started feeling a glimmer of hope, like maybe we could push through this, another wave of conflict hit. One afternoon, while scrolling through social media on my lunch break, I stumbled onto something that felt like a punch to the gut, an old photo album posted by a mutual acquaintance. In one of the pictures, dated just a couple months prior, I saw Ryan and Melissa standing side by side in what looked like a cozy living room, with Ava between them. It looked like a family portrait, complete with a big banner in the background reading, "Happy Birthday, Ava." He told me he was at his mother's bedside that weekend, which meant he lied again, this time about attending his daughter's birthday without me. I fought the urge to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I took a screenshot, my hands trembling. Why hadn't he told me about Ava's birthday party? We were supposedly in a new phase of honesty. Yes, it was before his big confession, but still, this was more evidence of how elaborate and recent his deception was. That evening, I confronted him, slamming my phone onto the table. "You had a birthday party for Ava in June, and you told me you were away helping your sick mom. Seriously." He stared at the photo, color draining from his face. "Hailey, that was before." "Before what?" I snapped, tears already burning. "Before you admitted the truth? It's still a massive lie. You stood there, posing for pictures, playing happy family while I was home alone, worried about your mother's so-called illness." He reached for my hand, but I jerked away. I didn't think you'd want to go, he murmured lamely. I let out a harsh laugh. You didn't even give me a choice. Don't you see how messed up that is? My voice cracked. I'm trying, Ryan, I really am. But every time I see evidence of the lengths you went to, it kills a piece of me inside. He exhaled shakily. I know, I'm sorry. I can't change what I did in the past. I can only promise to do better now. I bowed my head, fighting tears. Then do it. Stop expecting me to move on instantly when I keep finding new layers of betrayal. For days after that, tension simmered between us. We still went to counseling, still tried to talk openly, but the honeymoon pictures of his double life kept haunting me like scenes from a parallel reality. I'd scroll through my phone, half terrified I'd stumble on more hidden family photos or missed milestones. One late night, while Ryan was asleep in the guest room, I lay in bed, heart pounding with a nagging question. Could I ever truly forgive him? Yes, I understood his desire to be a father, but the deception was massive. Part of me wondered if I'd be happier walking away, freeing myself from the constant reminders that I was second to a family I never knew existed. Another part felt drawn to Ava's innocence. Did I really want to abandon her too, just because her father lied? At our next counseling session, Dr. Harvey asked us if we wanted to draft a trust-building plan, listing concrete steps Ryan would take to reassure me. It sounded clinical, but I was desperate. We wrote down specifics. He'd keep a shared calendar of all visits with Ava, share any communications from Melissa about Ava's needs, and update me weekly about finances spent on child support or household bills. In return, I promised to voice my frustrations calmly instead of lashing out or silently stewing. For a while, it worked. The transparency calmed my nerves a bit. Ryan seemed genuinely committed to rebuilding what we had. But trust isn't repaired overnight. It's a slow, painstaking process. Each time I heard his phone buzz, I'd wonder if it was another hidden conversation. Each time he mentioned going to see Ava, a surge of anxiety rolled through me, recalling how those weekends used to be a cover for lies. Still, there were flickers of optimism. We took small steps, inviting Ava for an afternoon at our townhouse, showing her my little garden, letting her help me plant flowers. She laughed with excitement, her big brown eyes lighting up. Ryan watched with a wistful smile, as if seeing the future he wished he'd built from the start. And in those moments, I felt a spark of connection. Maybe we could create a blended family that functioned on truth, not secrets. But as the weeks wore on, I couldn't shake the nagging fear. Had too much damage been done? Would I ever see Ryan the same way, or would I always suspect him of another hidden detail waiting to explode my life again? That question loomed over us, a ticking time bomb in the background. We still had a final blow coming, something that would once again test the fragile progress we'd made. And I had no idea if our tenuous marriage could survive another betrayal, especially when it struck at the heart of whether Ryan was truly committed to an honest future or still clinging to the shadows of his past. I should have seen it coming, the final blow that shattered the fragile trust we'd rebuilt. But I was clinging to hope, convincing myself that Ryan's newfound honesty was real, that we could craft a future where Ava felt loved and I didn't feel like a secondary character in my own marriage. For a while, the uneasy calm held. We juggled couples therapy, scheduled visits with Ava, and tried to merge our daily routines back into something resembling normalcy. One chilly Saturday afternoon, we invited Ava over again. She was excited about helping me bake cookies. I'm hardly a master baker, but she didn't seem to mind my clumsy attempts. Ryan put on music in the background, smiling as he watched us in the kitchen. For a brief moment, I felt genuine warmth, a glimpse of what might have been if everything had been honest from the start. Ava giggled whenever flour puffed up into the air or chocolate chips spilled off the countertop. It was messy, chaotic, and surprisingly sweet. Then my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I wiped my hands on a towel, stepped aside, and answered. Hello. Hi, this is Melissa, came the hesitant voice on the other end. Sorry to call you directly, but there's something I need to tell you. My heart clenched. Is Ava okay? I asked automatically, glancing at the little girl happily stirring batter. Melissa's voice wobbled. Ava's fine. I'm the one who, well, I need to talk to you, woman to woman. Can we speak privately? Maybe tomorrow. My stomach churned. Yes, of course, just tell me where. She suggested a coffee shop near her apartment early the next morning. I agreed, nerves racing. I hung up, staring at Ryan across the room. He shot me a questioning look, but I just shook my head. I didn't want to ruin the day for Ava. Whatever Melissa had to say, it could wait until tomorrow. The next morning, I arrived at the cafe first. The autumn air was crisp, leaves swirling around my feet as I waited. Melissa showed up, looking anxious, hands shoved into a worn jacket. She ordered a tea, I got a latte, and we found a quiet corner table. I could practically feel the tension crackling between us. She took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry to spring this on you, but I couldn't keep it in anymore. I know Ryan's told you he's only here for Ava, that you two are rebuilding trust. But I need to be honest," she trailed off, gaze flicking to the table. My heart hammered. "Go on," I managed, fear coiling in my chest. She exhaled sharply, like she was forcing the words out. "About a month before he told you the truth, before you found out about Ava, he and we slept together." Everything around me seemed to slow. My breath caught, a chill sweeping over my skin. "You what?" I whispered. She looked as though she might cry. "I swear it was just once. We were both stressed, Ava was sick, rent was overdue, he stayed the night, and we ended up in my room. Afterward, we agreed it was a mistake. He told me he loves you and just wants to be there for Ava, but I felt guilty ever since." My mind reeled. We'd been in therapy for weeks, working on honesty. Ryan swore up and down that he'd never slept with Melissa after their divorce. Yet here was the final twist, the final betrayal that cracked everything wide open again. I squeezed my eyes shut, tears burning behind my lids. Melissa reached across the table, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry, Hailey. I know you might hate me, but I had to tell you. You deserve to know what really happened, not some sugar-coated version." The cafe noises, espresso machines, distant chatter, faded into a dull roar as my head pounded. Finally, I forced myself to speak. "Thank you for telling me," I whispered. "I appreciate your honesty." My voice shook with barely contained anger and heartbreak. "He told me it was strictly about Ava. He never admitted this." She nodded miserably. "I confronted him about telling you. He begged me not to, said it would only hurt you more. But I can't live with the lie, especially if you're considering being Ava's stepmom." My throat constricted. If Ryan had simply told me everything at once, maybe I would have felt differently. But he'd hidden so many layers of deceit, each new one cutting deeper than the last. First, the child. Then, the repeated weekends. Now, actual infidelity. My stomach churned. Melissa looked at me, tears brimming. "I'm not trying to break you two up. Honestly, I want Ryan to be happy, and I want Ava to have both parents in her life. But I can't stand by while he lies to you." I could barely form words. I need to go." I stood up, fumbling with my purse. My legs felt like jelly. She rose too, eyes red. "I'm sorry," she repeated, voice trembling. Without another word, I hurried out into the chilly morning air. My mind swirled in a frenzy of betrayal, humiliation, sorrow. Ryan had used the story of a sick mom to hide not just fatherly duties, but actual cheating. I'd begun to forgive him for one betrayal, only to find a worse one lurking beneath. I drove home on autopilot, tears blurring my vision. Once inside, I found Ryan in the living room, flipping through channels. He glanced up, smiling weakly. "Hey, you're back early. Everything okay?" Fury ignited within me. I slammed my keys down so hard they bounced off the table. "Don't you dare ask if everything's okay. I just talked to Melissa." My voice trembled, raw with emotion. "She told me about that night. The night you slept with her while I was here alone, worried sick, believing your mother was dying." His face went ghostly pale. The remote slipped from his hand. "Hailey, let me." "Explain," I spat, tears flooding my eyes. "There's nothing left to explain. You swore you were only helping her with Ava. You led me to therapy, told me you wanted honesty. And all this time, you never mentioned you actually slept with her." He stood, desperation filling his gaze. "It was one mistake, a horrible, stupid mistake. It happened before I told you about Ava. I swear, after that, I realized I only wanted you. I've been loyal since." I laughed bitterly, tears streaming down my cheeks. "Loyal? You call months of lying about your ex-wife and child loyal? Then you left out the fact that you slept with her. Do you know how sick this is?" He reached for me, eyes glistening. "Hailey, I was terrified you. Walk away if you knew. I was going to tell you eventually, but then everything with counseling, I couldn't bring myself to drop that bomb. I stepped back, hugging myself as if to shield against his words. You can't keep protecting me by telling me half-truths. Every time I start to trust you again, you slap me in the face with another lie. I can't live like this. His tears spilled over. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know it's not enough, but it was one night of weakness, I swear. I shook my head, collapsing onto the couch, my chest heaving with sobs. I don't care if it was one night or 100. You had every chance to tell me when we started therapy or even before we got married. But you've been lying from day one, Ryan. It's not just about the cheating, it's the betrayal, the constant deception. He sank to his knees beside me, hands trembling. I'll do anything, please don't give up on us. I'll move out if that's what you need, but please don't file for divorce yet. Let me prove I can be better. I stared at him through tear-blurred eyes, my heart cracking under the weight of it all. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw him out right this second. Another part remembered Ava's innocent face, how she'd clung to Ryan at the park. But I couldn't ignore the scorch of betrayal filling my veins. After what felt like an eternity, I rose shakily. I can't look at you right now, I said, my voice barely steady. Pack a bag, you're leaving tonight. Go stay with Melissa if you want, or a motel, I don't care. He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. No, I'm done listening to excuses. Let me breathe, then we'll see if there's anything left to salvage. He nodded, tears streaking his cheeks. In a daze, I watched him gather clothes from the guest room, throw them haphazardly into a duffel bag. He paused at the door like he wanted to say something, but the fury in my eyes must have warned him off. He left, the door closing softly behind him, and I broke down, collapsing to the floor, sobbing so hard I thought my lungs might explode. For days, I couldn't function. I called out from work, letting Daria handle my shifts. She came over with groceries, tissues, wine, hugging me as I poured my soul out. I wept. I tried to forgive the secret daughter, the ex-wife, but he actually cheated. It's too much. She stroked my hair, her eyes damp too. He made his bed, she said softly, and now he has to face the consequences. Ryan texted me endlessly, apologizing, begging for a chance to explain more. I ignored him. He tried calling, leaving voicemails that tore at my heart. I'm sorry, I'm a monster, I need help, I love you. But I couldn't bear to hear his voice. The memories of him kneeling beside me, lying again and again, made me physically ill. Melissa also texted, saying she felt terrible for the pain she'd caused. I believed her sincerity, but it didn't dull the agony. Nothing could erase the image of Ryan sneaking out under the guise of visiting a sick mother, only to sleep with his ex. The child was never the issue, it was his complete disregard for honesty and respect. By the end of the week, I found myself in Dr. Harvey's office, trembling. She listened as I recounted the new betrayal, her expression sorrowful. Hailey, I'm so sorry you had to discover this. It's a significant trauma. Have you considered your next step? I swallowed hard. I don't know. Divorce feels inevitable, but I'm terrified. I love him, or at least I loved who I thought he was. And what about Ava? She's innocent. Am I just walking away from her? Dr. Harvey offered a gentle smile. You can still remain supportive of Ava if you choose, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in a marriage that causes you constant pain. It's okay to prioritize your own well-being. That evening, I sat in the dark of our living room, but it felt haunted by the ghost of false promises. I stared at the wedding photo we'd once displayed on the mantel, now tucked away in a drawer, the memory too painful to confront. Was there anything left worth saving? Ryan had left a final voicemail hours earlier. I'm checking into a motel. I won't bother you anymore until you say otherwise. But please, Hailey, I beg you to talk with me when you're ready. I pressed my palms to my eyes, tears sliding down my cheeks. I wished I could erase every trace of love I had for him, replace it with pure anger. But heartbreak doesn't work that way. Even as I felt betrayed, a part of me longed for the man I'd believed in, the sweet, supportive partner who'd made me breakfast and rubbed my feet after long shifts. That man, I had to accept, was a fantasy. In the end, I made a choice for myself. The next day, I texted Ryan to meet me at a lawyer's office. When he showed up, bleary-eyed and defeated, I handed him a packet of separation paperwork. I can't live like this, I said, my voice shaking but resolute. I'm filing for divorce. If you want to fight it, you can, but I'm done. Tears poured down his cheeks. He looked at the papers like they were a death sentence. Hailey, please no. My own tears choked me, but I stayed firm. I'm sorry. I won't be the woman who forgives every lie and pretends trust can magically reappear. You can be a father to Ava, but you're no longer my husband. He wept openly, begging for another chance, but I shook my head. I have to protect my heart, Ryan, and you've broken it too many times. The lawyer guided us through the initial steps. It was all a blur, talk of dividing our assets, the lease, the usual legal jargon. Ryan kept apologizing, sobbing that he loved me. I believed he might love me in his twisted way, but it wasn't enough anymore. Not after the lies, the affair, the heartbreak. Over the next few weeks, I leaned on Daria, therapy, and my own inner resolve. Ryan tried repeatedly to salvage something, but I maintained my stance. Eventually, he accepted it, focusing on finding a more stable living situation so he could still parent Ava. I had no ill will toward that little girl. I even sent her a small note wishing her well. But I couldn't stay in a marriage built on deceit. Looking back now, the moral dilemma is clear. Does a man have the right to be with his child from a previous marriage? Absolutely. But that wasn't the real question. The real question was whether he had the right to lie, cheat, and manipulate in pursuit of that goal. And the answer was no. His fatherly duty didn't justify betraying me, spinning an entire fiction about his mother's health or sleeping with his ex. The aftermath, I learned the hardest lesson of all. Some betrayals cut too deep to mend with apologies. Love requires trust, and once that trust is repeatedly shattered, there may be no going back. As I packed Ryan's remaining belongings into boxes, tears slipped down my cheeks, grief for the future I once believed in, for the children I imagined we'd have, for the illusions of a perfect marriage. But I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was no longer trapped by the next inevitable lie. In therapy, Dr. Harvey offered a parting thought. Healing isn't about pretending you're not hurt, it's about acknowledging the hurt and deciding you deserve better. Over time, those words became my mantra. I immersed myself in work, found new hobbies, turns out I'm decent at painting, if not baking, and slowly rebuilt my sense of self. Friends rallied around me, reminding me I wasn't alone. Even Melissa reached out once, expressing regret that things ended so badly. She and Ryan eventually established a stable co-parenting plan for Ava. As for him, he respected my decision, took months, but he stopped trying to reverse it. Maybe he finally realized the damage was irreparable. Now, as I stand at the brink of a new chapter, I feel the echoes of heartbreak, but also the glimmer of hope. I'm learning to trust again, myself mostly. And if I ever fall in love again, I'll make sure honesty sits at the center. Because while people can make mistakes, it's the choice to lie and keep lying that can destroy everything you hold dear. Some lessons cost you the life you thought you'd have. But in losing that life, I found the strength to demand something real, genuine trust, not illusions. So yes, he had every right to be a father. But he never had the right to betray me or to hide behind his child as an excuse for deceit. I walked away with scars, but also with a clarity I wish I'd had from the start. Real love is built on truth, and I deserve nothing less.